Transportation and Commerce Committee to order. Would you please call the roll?
Alderman Moore.
Here.
Alderman Vaccaro. Alderman Cone.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderman Muhammad.
Here.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Chair Lady Davis.
Present.
7 present, you have 4.
Thank you. Today before us is Board Bill 104 with a committee substitute. We have some of the information before us. They're still copying some of it. And so as I understand it, we will be going through a number of documents that are related to this board bill. So we'll have the committee substitute, you'll have a corporation agreement, you'll have a fiscal note for the board bill, and you'll have a summary of the board bill that I'm not sure the difference between a summary and a board bill, only that it will continue to have more confusion, but we shall review all of them, okay? Otis, would you like to have, who would you like to have start off on this?
Well, I can start and I'll hand it off to Susan. She
All
has
right,
a
I
specific-
appreciate it.
Okay, right there, Susan.
Yes, sir.
Susan, can you- Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you for having us again this week. This is Board Bill 104 and the committee substitute, as you indicated. And our goal with the board bill initially was to look at expanding the port district, and our rationale for doing that had been that we were the only jurisdiction in the state of Missouri whose coterminous boundaries were different than the actual jurisdiction of the county. And so I think in a previous briefing we shared with you all of the other port districts that are located. There are over 16 of them that are in the state. And in addition to that, some of the rationale that we had was that we started working on the expansion idea with the passage of the AIM zone legislation at the state level. And that provided some benefits to the city overall, could provide to the city overall if the boundaries were coterminous. And we were looking at other things that were available through the port that could also be available to the rest of the city. But in our discussions with a number of the aldermen and some separate meetings that we had, there were several issues that came up that we wanted to address, and we wanted to address them through the committee substitute that you have in front of you. And one of those was the ability of the port to provide for tax abatement, and we indicated that we would not do that unless we came back in a similar fashion that we do with the enterprise zone, that we would bring it back for a resolution that would be passed by the board. There was also concern, help me, eminent domain. There was also a concern that the court had separate powers for eminent domain. We also said that we would not do eminent domain without coming back to the board as well. And the third item was on leasing. Currently, the court has the leasing powers for properties that are within the current port district, and the legislation would eliminate that control that for the entire city, but only remain in the current port boundary. And so I think what we tried to do is to address those concerns that were there through this committee substitute. And I'll pass it to Susan to summarize.
In addition, we wanted to let everyone know that we are an economic development entity, and the AIM zone is a way for state money to come to the Port Authority to be spent in the city, within the Port District, to rebuild infrastructure, improve rail crossings, and things like that. It's not city money, it's state money that we currently don't have. And also, AIM zone projects, AIM stands for Advanced Industrial Manufacturing. AIM zone projects, in order to work, are generally most successful if they have 20, 25, 30 jobs. And so looking for projects of that size, we're going to be better off if we have the whole city to look at. It expands the gene pool for the projects. The other thing that we can do is there are a number of grant applications that can only be applied for by ports. So for example, FEMA has a port security grant program. We applied for that a few years ago. That's federal money, that paid for cameras on the city's riverfront. I know Alderman Collins Muhammad was concerned about his ward. Something like a FEMA security grant enables you to perhaps have cameras in your ward to deal with whatever kinds of issues might be driving development away. But again, that's only a port authority that can apply for that, and it's federal money that we bring to, we can bring to the whole city. At the moment, all we can do is bring it to the 6,000 or so acres along the riverfront. Yeah. So we view this as an opportunity to improve infrastructure and fund various projects, and we'd like to be able to do that across the whole city.
Was there anything else, Otis?
No, that was it.
Okay.
We're available, obviously, to answer questions.
Okay. So technically, because I'm not sure what went on in that last meeting, what we need to do is to bring Board Bill 104 committee substitute before us.
I make a motion that we bring before us the committee substitute for Board Bill number 104.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Alderman Moore.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad.
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
7 ayes.
So, you had a number of concerns even after last committee meeting. Have all these things been resolved? So do we need to start looking at some of these other documents that you have here?
I don't know whether we resolved them, but I think, I know that Alderman Vaccaro had not had a chance to look at some of the material.
Mhm.
And I'm hopeful that he has by this time. But I don't think that we had any other issues. I know there were several people who didn't agree, obviously, so
Oh,
I'm not
well,
sure.
we'll have that always.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, that's not a problem.
Could I ask a question? Is there anything about the board bill that anybody specifically has a question?
Susan, we go in order. of-
Yeah,
sorry.
we
Sorry.
will.
So,
I'm
I'll go sit in the corner.
I'm gonna take an opportunity to allow each member of the committee to have discussion. And so I'm gonna ask the pleasure of the committee. Would you like to do each document separately, or would you just like to have any comments that you have pertaining to all three of the additional documents in front of us as you take your turn?
I
What
would
you prefer?
prefer that we do them separately so that one don't run into the other.
Okay,
We'll be able to ask those questions immediately about that situation.
okay. Do I hear any objections?
So if I'm understanding correctly, all the documents pertain to Board Bill 104,
Yes, sir.
right? So the Board Bill fiscal note, the cooperation agreement, and the
Yes.
Board Bill itself.
Yes.
So it's just that the cooperation agreement and the fiscal note are addendums to the Board Bill. I would prefer just to take them all at once, because we're not going to be voting on them separately. They're all
No,
part of the Board Bill.
no, yeah. It all could have just been attached together.
Right.
Yeah, technically,
Got it.
yeah. So, but because we have it before us this way, I just wanted to make sure how you wanted to do it, okay? Any other comments on that, how we move forward? Okay, so now you're gonna make me choose, because we only got 2 comments.
I
I tell,
yield to Shane.
you agree with Shane?
I yield to Shane.
Okay,
You-
that solves the problem, thank
It's
you.
the only time.
All right.
Take advantage.
I would expect nothing less.
Well, you know, we do kind of like him a little bit on most days.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to go ahead and start with our committee members with their concerns, and Alderman Moore, you're first.
What are the words, are we talking about the Port Authority downtown?
Well, the current port boundaries are along the river, the 19 miles along the river. They generally, the total acreage is just 6,000 acres. And so it's roughly from the river, the center of the river, back to probably 4th Street and Broadway. In most cases, except for downtown, it comes back almost to Tucker.
19 miles?
It's 19 miles along the river. That's the current port.
This is a picture, and so the 19 miles is like this, and so there's about 6,000 acres. It's all, just hugs the riverfront, and here's the city limits.
And what were we eminent domain in those 19 miles? We're trying to expand.
Well, we've never used that power. I mean, but it's a power that is available by statute, but we haven't done it.
So you will if you have to.
No, that's not our intent. I think we were just responding to the eminent domain question because it was asked of us that if you expanded it throughout the entire city, would that be a power that the Port Authority would use? And what we're trying to do is to make everyone comfortable that we would not even entertain the idea without coming back to the Board of Aldermen for the Board of Aldermen's approval.
Is there any parcel of land or any business down there that would get in the way?
We have no current project that we're looking at that we're even considering, any land acquisition.
And that expansion, what would it consist of?
It would just change the boundary for the Port Authority. So instead of the boundary that you see there, it would be the entire city, the 61 square miles.
And what actually is the Port Authority's function?
Well, why don't I let you articulate?
We kind of have 2 roles. One is we're part of St. Louis Development Corporation, so we try to create economic development within the port district. The other thing is we're a landlord port, so we have riverfront facilities that the city owns, but we don't operate them. So we don't move goods ourselves, so we lease out those operations. The main facility that we have is right here at the foot of North Market Street. It's the city's public dock, and so we lease the operations out, so we try to keep that dock as up-to-date and as well-built as possible to keep its public function, which is to move goods.
And also in that same district, we have over 40 leases that we manage on behalf of, for the city. So that's one of the functions. But we also work with the businesses that are located within that boundary, the Anheuser-Busch's of the world, others that who historically have used the port to get fuel or to, and we also bring in through the port the salt that is used on the roads that are we're currently using in the winter. But there are a number of industries that are located there who take advantage of the barge capability that is available along the river. And so in the St. Louis region, one of the things we always say is that the Port Authority, the St. Louis Port Authority is number 2 or 3, depending upon which metric is looked at, as the 2 or 3 largest inland ports in America. We're like I think now maybe the 21st largest port of any kind. That's deep water and inland port within America. And so passing the arch on an annual basis is over 100 million tons. And about 30 million of those tons actually cross the docks here in St. Louis. Those that cross the dock on the city side, which is roughly about 16 million, is managed. At least we have some oversight and look at how those things are done through the leases that we control.
An example of economic development on the south riverfront, there's a company called Little Grani, and they bring grain in and they make flour and send it over to a pasta plant. So we issued a bond to help them, they're expanding, so we help them expand. They want to expand some more, so that's one way that we try to participate in helping businesses grow and prosper.
What are we housing in this?
This particular, that's a 90,000 square foot warehouse. At the moment, it's full of steel coil, aluminum ingots. It's got 2 gigantic piles of mulch, about 40 feet tall. So it's goods like that that move across the dock. It's always something moving across the dock.
What's in there now?
The 2 piles of mulch, the steel coil, aluminum ingots.
Mulch.
Mhm. You ready for spring?
What is
But other things that come through, I mean, there are lots of other goods that come across the dock, like salt,
Grain.
and coal, grain,
Mhm.
you know, so it's, you know, right now, one of the things that the operator is championing is the coil, because it's a very profitable thing, and so that's one of the new things that's going on.
Where does the leasing money go?
It goes,
Well,
General revenue?
no.
no, the leases are, it's sort of a recurring kind of thing, so in order to make the port operate, it comes to us through the port, through the general revenue, and the,
You don't get to, it doesn't.
no, not through general revenue, I'm sorry, it's not general revenue, but it comes to us, the Port Authority.
So for example, on this dock, the lease revenue, we recently rebuilt that dock because part of it was failing, it was near collapse.
So you just collect the lease money and?
We've invested it back in that facility.
So you don't have to turn it into the general revenue fund?
No, we use it,
Oh.
I've got a,
There's an agreement between the city that this board passed some time back
The
for
usage.
for the operation and maintenance of the port area, but also for this terminal, and so that's what.
Madam Chair, lady,
yes, sir.
I might not speak again, but I want everybody to know that I have a sinus problem. If you hear me breathing, I'm not faint, I'm not getting ready to leave you. It's just that I have a sinus problem, and I can hear myself breathe, so I hope you guys can, because it's horrible.
All right, sir, thank you.
All right, I appreciate it. That's all I have on this.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Alderman Vaccaro?
Yeah, I still have a lot of concerns. You know, in section 3, and so they can go into anybody's ward and do whatever, but, I mean, right here, that basically they can carry it out with no such further action of the Board of Aldermen unless they authorize the action of the mayor and the comptroller. So if, for instance, they decide they're gonna do something in the 23rd ward or, and I was kinda looking at some of the stuff in the county. I think there's been, what some people feel maybe it gave the county, the head of the county their authority to do stuff and overstep. And I still have concerns that this will give authority to overstep the Board of Aldermen if we disagree on something. I mean, that's really my concerns. I don't, you know, I know you're saying we can get grants, but so can we. And, you know, in the case of, you know, the ground, say for instance, for a stadium or something, this would give the Port Authority basically the right to overstep whatever, you know, if it's in my ward, so they're gonna do something in my ward and the neighbors don't want it, you know, I somewhat give up that authority. And it's still, even though it says these memorandums of understanding, I just, I don't know. It's gonna pass out of here, I'm sure, but I'll be honest with you, to look at it, I think it gives too much authority for the Port Authority to come in, and watching some of the actions in the county make me feel that it's gonna give too much authority to overstep, step around something that the Board of Aldermen feels one way about. And we're the ones that catch all the grief. The people in the neighborhood are gonna call and yell at me if they're not happy with something we're doing. Liking to be in control of everything, I don't like giving up my control.
Well, I guess I would address you by saying that the grants that we were talking about are those that are just, those that are available through the Port Authority. Yes, there are lots of grants that are available to all of the wards and to the city as a whole. But the two that we were speaking of specifically were the AIM zone availability and also the FEMA grants that were available.
But even with the memorandum of understanding, I would think that the Port Authority would have the ability to either go in and, not that they would, but could go in and use eminent domain, or they could condemn something, even with the memorandum of understanding. They could still use their authority, because it says by, that no further action. I don't know, I'm just saying why I vote for it. I think it takes away the authority of the different aldermen. It takes away the authority of the Board of Aldermen, and basically says, well, we're just gonna give it to you guys. And even with the memorandum of understanding, say, well, you'll come over and discuss it with us.
No, get your approval.
And we don't have condemnation powers.
You have none.
Eminent domain, though.
Yes, that's what it is.
But you can't use
Right, so I
eminent,
thought
you could use eminent domain.
Yeah.
Right, okay, I was gonna
So
try to
that's the
make
same thing.
a separation,
So you don't have to
distinction
condemn it,
between the two.
So I don't condemn your house, but under eminent domain, I
Right.
take your house
Yeah.
because it's in the way of a project that I
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm not comfortable with it, and again,
We have a board, and obviously the
who sits
chair,
on the board?
obviously the chair of the Transportation and Commerce Committee sits on the board. The
Who else?
Director of the Department of Streets sits on the board, and then there are 5 mayoral appointees that require the consent of the Board of Aldermen. So anything that we do goes past our board. And the county, some of the stuff they did, based on what I read in the paper, they weren't following that procedure, and so we're audited, we have a board, we're out there.
A board that has the head of transportation, 5 appointees from the mayor.
And Department of
and
Streets,
the
Director.
Department of Streets, but also who's appointed by the
And then the 5 appointments by the mayor require aldermanic consent.
mayor. Right. Which we do pretty much when the mayor, if you've ever been to a meeting, I don't think we've challenged very much. And we have to believe that the mayor is appointing people that, we can trust. I'm just saying, I'm not comfortable with it. I did look into it a little bit more. And I'm sure based off of talking to people in here, it's gonna pass, but I think we give up our authority, and, I think we're giving up too much. It's just an opinion, but for whatever it's worth. No other, there's more comment.
All right, thank you, sir. Alderman Cohen?
Thank you. A couple things. One, the composition of the Port Authority, has been an issue of debate. So I just want to make sure that we're clear and confirm, these are mayoral appointees that are affirmed by the Board of Aldermen. Right, so there's the ex officio members that, are there by virtue of their position, either here at the board or in the mayor's cabinet. And then there's 5 additional members that are appointed by the mayor and confirmed at the board.
Correct.
Right. I had a number of my colleagues after this passed out the first time that were underneath the impression that we have no say in the appointment of the Port Authority board members, which, I was trying to, educate them otherwise, but, just want to make sure that we're clear on that matter. So we do have input into the Port Authority, the membership of that board. I appreciate the work that you all have done to provide a little bit more transparency in regards to the memorandum of understanding, the cooperation agreement between SLDC, the Port Authority, and the Board of Aldermen. Along the lines kind of providing clarity, transparency. After this passed out of committee the last time around, there was some confusion as to whether or not this is expanding the boundaries of the Port Authority all the way to the city limits. We are, with the introduction of the committee substitute, that is still the intent, is to make sure that the Port Authority doesn't just run along the 19 miles of riverfront, but it actually extends all the way to the city limits proper, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And so with that, you all will have all the authorities vested by state statute, to do whatever it is you intend to do. Which actually leads me to my question. When we passed this board bill out the first time around, we were told that there are no projects that are currently being discussed or deliberated that depend upon the expansion of the Port Authority district. And when it came out to the floor of the Board of Aldermen, the same time we were having discussions around potentially, receiving an expansion team, from the MLS, from the Major League Soccer folks, and we were having discussions around the stadium, and in the media it was portrayed as though us not passing this expansion of the Port Authority directly contributed to whether or not we would be able to obtain a Major League Soccer team. Is the MLS deal contingent upon the expansion of the Port Authority district?
No, and I think I said during the discussions that what the deal is that it requires 1% sales tax. And so the way to get there was through a CID and a TDD. And it would be available, the Port Authority would be able to provide something called a PID, which is available through the Port Authority statute. So that would be one way to get there. And that was what was being used as an example. And so I think the question was asked, so if you don't expand, then does that kill it? No, we would have to come up with something creative the next time they come back to the board for that other 1%. But I don't know what that is. So, but there will be something that would be created legislatively to make that work.
And to be clear, the PID is a 1% sales tax on goods within the Port Authority district itself.
No, within, and in this case, it's like establishing a CID. You make it specific.
So it would be within so it wouldn't be the entire Port Authority boundaries.
No.
It would be
specific to
prescribing a specific project or property where that sales tax would be
Correct.
levied.
And
Right.
the idea was to be able to take advantage of the users of the facility to pick up that tax.
So with regard, because I think there was some confusion around that in particular as well with the PID, because as you know, sales tax is a fairly sensitive subject in the city of St. Louis, because it is very high, and having to levy a 1% sales tax across the entire city if we do expand the districts, obviously would upset and distress many of our constituents. So the PIDs themselves are specifically for project areas or properties themselves, not for the entire Port Authority boundary area.
And it requires the consent of those taxed in the PID,
Right.
Port Improvement District.
So, but as, right,
Okay.
I'll leave it there, yeah. So, the other point of clarification and a question that came up, if I recall correctly, there was a concern around, obviously there's and we've discussed this already during this committee hearing, so I don't want to belabor the eminent domain issue. Can you explain how, with the memorandum of understanding, eminent domain, if it were to ever be used, would be addressed with the expansion of the Port Authority.
So, what we're proposing, using the memo, is that it would be, we would come back to the Board of Aldermen with a request, with a resolution. I believe it's a resolution, just as we do with enterprise zone and other things. We would come back with a resolution asking for a approval by the board. I'm assuming that at that point it will be assigned for a hearing before a committee of the board, and then up or down by the members of the board.
Okay. So to be clear, with the memorandum of understanding that is specifically referenced in the board bill, the memorandum of understanding, or cooperation agreement, it's called, would require the Port Authority and SLDC to come back before this legislative body before pursuing any type of eminent domain
Yes.
and initiating that process. So I want to thank you all for coming here, because those were the issues, the primary issues that I know were brought up by other colleagues of mine on the floor after this had passed out of committee. I do believe that the cooperation agreement addresses many of the concerns that were brought up, in addition to the clarification on the other issues that we talked about here. So I appreciate your time this morning, and I also appreciate the chairwoman for bringing this back to committee so that we can entertain the committee substitute to address the concerns of the members of our board. I don't have any other questions or comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Alderwoman Howard.
I think we've just about covered everything. I think that this will probably be a opportunity for the city to take advantage of some things that we haven't taken advantage of. And as you stated, there's some public safety grants available through this possibly. I assume those would be matching grants. Would those funds come from SLDC, or would they come from?
Well, we would be probably petitioning the Port Authority to provide the match. When I say Port Authority, obviously each of those boards report back to me, through SLDC, but it would require the approval of each of the boards. In this case, it would be the Port Authority Commission.
Okay, and so they would ascertain those funds from general operating funds from the city, or from
No,
SLDC?
within the ports.
Their own funds?
Yes.
Port Authority's funds.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Muhammad.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I still have a lot of concerns about this board bill. I serve the exact same sentiments as my colleague from the 23rd. This is allowing the Port Authority to come into our wards and do development without our input or say so. It is. It's just my opinion, Madam Chairwoman,
I understand.
respectfully. And the only purpose of expanding the Port Authority, as I heard from you two, or to do economic development in the city.
Well,
And
that was the primary purpose.
SLDC has that capability now, but does not do it, at least not in my ward, or not in North St. Louis, not in the 11 wards that comprise North St. Louis. I don't see the purpose of expanding the Port Authority. And again, this is allowing the Port Authority to come into our wards and pretty much do what they want. SLDC, I said this in the last committee hearing, SLDC is a government agency that really doesn't report to anyone. To me, there's no accountability in the actions of SLDC, and that's fine. But there's no inclusion either, and that's what I'm afraid of. But again, as my colleague said, the aldermen will get those calls when they like something and when they don't like something. Residents, I'm talking about, or communities. And I'm fearful that this is only going to be another agency or another board that has the power to do what they want. So I cannot support it. I will be voting no.
Can I comment on a couple of the comments that you made, if you don't mind?
Please do.
Well, one, it is not just, I call it overall economic development. It is overall economic development, but it's to be able to take advantage of a tool that we do not have, and to also take advantage of funds that are not the city's funds. Obviously, we would like to use I call it other people's money to be able to help us, and so that's one of the aspects of it. To your comment, we are working feverishly to try and ensure that what I call economic development activities are spread throughout the city. And I know several members of this board will take issue with that, but let me just comment.
Amen.
I agree. So let me just make comment though. I know in Alderman Middlebrook's area that we have over the last decade put over $1 billion worth of redevelopment has occurred. With all of the major anchors that are located within that ward. And it didn't happen without us being involved in trying to get it done, but also at the same time, we have a number of things that are sort of working, like the slap site at Goodfellow and I-70, that we've gone to like 2 or 3 developers to try and make that one happen. Things that have happened along Natural Bridge, that's west of Kings Highway, a couple of major businesses that were expanded and located in that area and the first ward, and the efforts that we are working right now along Martin Luther King with a couple of the developers as we try and mesh and connect to the efforts of along North Sarah and with a couple of developments that have occurred. Now, I will agree with you wholeheartedly, not enough has occurred, but it's not for lack of a lot of energy to try and make it happen. And so one of the things that we have a focus on as we have kicked off our economic development strategy is trying to figure out what else can we do and how can we make sure that our focus is on nodes. One of the focuses will be on nodes and how we can make sure that our goal is to make sure that the next time I have a bill before you say next year, if I'm still around, in another year, that you won't have the same comment that you have today. So, I mean, I cannot make you not feel the way that you feel. So it's all in, I call it proof is in the pudding, and so we've got to deliver to you.
I've been here 10 years, I'm still waiting for the proof in the pudding.
Okay. All right. I don't want to be here that long. Wait. You said that every other major city in a state, their port authority is coextensive with their cities or counties boundary. Does every other county have an SLDC?
The major cities, in this case, Kansas City and Columbia, and in this case, St. Charles and St. Louis counties, both are represented in that group as well.
Do they report to their counterparts of the SLDC?
I can't answer that directly and tell you that. I don't know.
I just don't see the accountability in it, or the transparency. Not accountability. I don't see the transparency. I will be voting no, Madam Chairman, respectfully.
All right. Alderwoman Middlebrook?
I have no questions. They have been asked and answered.
All right. I just, you had a follow-up, sir. Go right ahead.
No, it's just, well, I had a whole bunch of issues, but let's just say Sam's ward. Sam's against the project. And even with the memorandum of understanding, you'll come back to the board. We'll vote against Sam and say, okay, no, we We think for that project, you know, I think it's taken away, I just think it takes away the authority of a particular alderman in this ward. That if they're gonna do some expansion in Sam's ward, and I'm just picking on Sam, in Sam's ward, for instance, and they say, well, but this is gonna be for the good of the city, we're gonna build whatever, golf course, I don't know, anything, whatever it is. And if you guys are doing it, the materials then are gonna be tax-free to the person that you're building. But, you know, even under the memorandum of understanding, you're gonna come back to the full board, because you're gonna decide, well, I'm gonna take part of this under eminent domain because I need it to complete this project. Then he wouldn't have say, we would all have say in what's going on. I mean, am I understanding that right?
We don't see doing business any different than the way we currently do business, which is we work with each of the aldermen. If an alderman is against a project, it's not only, you know, approving the, I call it incentives, there are so many other things that has to be done. You know, getting permits and getting a lot of other things that require actions by the alderman. And so we don't, if we know we don't have the support of the alderman, we generally talk with the developer and make sure they know that in order to get the permits, they're gonna need, you know, the alderman support in order to get a lot of the, I call it city support services. It requires, and we only do one aspect of it, which is to provide the incentive if one is approved. You know, I know you mentioned eminent domain, but what we are saying is that we wouldn't even pursue that if we knew we didn't have the support of the alderman. I don't know of a scenario where we would try and ramshot an activity down the throat of a district without having spoken with the alderman.
I think it's happened in the community. If I follow everything right, the county executor, you know, anyway, I mean, obviously you know where I'm at on it, so I'll move on.
Yes, sir.
I do have no problem.
Okay, but I need to go to Alderman Moore
Yeah,
first,
of
okay?
course.
Go right
Yeah,
ahead, sir.
Shane. How much money does the Port Authority have now?
I have to get you that number. I don't know right off, but it's probably a little, it's less than $1 million, but I don't know.
It's a whole lot less than $1 million. I was shocked.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I've been complaining anyway, because one of the problems of the city is we're not revenue driven. That's why we're a poor city and we can't take care of our residents.
Right.
So I've been asking you to raise prices on things. I know you all don't like it, but we've got to learn how to bring more revenue to the
Well,
city.
I mean, we're following through.
I know you are. You're
We're trying
trying.
to
Yeah.
change the lease rates that we have so that we get more funds.
They did increase the lease rates, yes, I appreciate that.
But we got 19 miles of Port Authority right now. Wouldn't it be easy to figure out who's paying what lease?
Oh, we know
We
who's
know.
paying, and we know how much they're paying. I just don't have the total that you're asking me for.
Why isn't the alderman involved in this? Why isn't she a co-sponsor on this bill?
Well, it wasn't about really the current port
It's her
district.
ward.
But there's,
But what we were trying to do, and the reason we were working with Alderwoman Davis is because it was going to be a citywide effort, and she served on the Port Authority and chairs the committee, and so we just did that.
How would the Port Authority affect my ward besides taking money from it?
We aren't going to take any money from you. We would not take any money from.
Say y'all don't have any money, how you gonna improve?
No, I said what we would do though, just say that, I'll give you an example of, just say we had a large company that wanted to, that needed to find enough space to be able to build something. We could find space in the 4th Ward and then use the AIM zone, this is getting some of the state money, to be able to help us, just be another tool that we could use in addition to just tax abatement or if it was a large tip.
Otis, I heard something good about you the other day. That was unusual
I'm sure.
on my account. It was someone trying to put a project in my ward and everybody was trying to steer them out of my community. And you defended my community by asking them to stay in my community, so I applaud you on that, but that doesn't help you vote on this.
You gotta stop.
Thanks.
Oh, I needed that laugh, thank you.
One more
Make a
question,
mo-
Madam Chairwoman.
Yes, sir, go right ahead.
You said if we were gonna do something, y'all will come back to the board on with your proposal.
Yes.
Is that in the written
Well,
in the agreement?
in those things that are identified in the cooperation agreement, we would be coming back to the board.
Okay.
I have one question, Madam Chairwoman.
I gotta go to Alderman
I'm
Crum
not
first.
through yet. Shane?
Wait a minute, he's not done.
Oh,
Yes, I am. Go ahead.
Okay, what is it?
I, I'm supportive of this measure primarily because it provides another tool for us as a city to be able to utilize to help development and what I hope would be across the city and not just a soccer stadium.
Right.
Okay. I share some concerns with my colleagues with regard to how this will, or even if this would be used in other parts of the city to help development. I think my concern is different from theirs because they're concerned that so much development is going to happen in their ward that we're going to end up using things like eminent domains and tools in the toolbox that probably, would be alarming for constituents, if they're misused. I have the exact opposite concern where I don't think that there's a plan in place to properly administer the tools that we have in our toolbox. And that is probably my greatest concern for the future of economic development in the city. I realize that, after a lot of finagling, we were able to get some funding for an economic development plan, which will hopefully illuminate some of the issues and provide some guidance going forward with regard to economic development in the city. However, I have very strong concerns with regard to SLDC's ability to be proactively engaged in development across the city. And this is nothing that you and I haven't had a conversation about before. I'm not, springing this on you out of nowhere. At least I would hope that, you don't feel that way. But, the $1 billion worth of development in the, second ward was not driven by SLDC. That was driven by people like Green Street Development Partners, P&G, Procter and Gamble, and a slew of other
I beg to differ.
groups.
The place where Green Street is working is based on an RFP that we did, that they responded to about 10 years ago. And so what Green Street and where they're working at in that area is a direct response to what we were hoping for. And so when they got in, they are now
It's
taking
got to
advantage.
help you if it takes 10 years to get Cleveland High School redeveloped based off of this RFP that you're supposedly putting out
No.
there. I mean,
I hear you. Alderman, hopefully, just as you say, we will come up with, through this economic development strategy that is underway, that we come up with other recommendations on how we can do this and how we can utilize the assets that are currently, that we currently have to make sure that we do what you really want us to do.
I really hope that it addresses areas of concern, places like MLK Drive, places like Gravois, places like Virginia Avenue, Broadway, South Broadway.
Right.
North Broadway, struggles. I know it's not just the second ward, it's also the third and the
Gustine.
fifth ward. Gustine on the southeast side of the city has had a significant lack of investment over the years. And actually as part of the enhanced enterprise, zone in the city of St. Louis, I would hope that with the expansion of the Port Authority boundaries, that the Port Authority would take it upon themselves to work in conjunction with SLDC and the economic development plan that's being, created at the moment, to actually look at where we can deploy resources and help generate growth for the city. And as it pertains to the Port Authority specifically, we obviously have what should be an interconnected commerce system and transportation system that supports the commerce and economic development of this city. Our ports are, one component of that. Our rail lines are another that are very intertwined with the Port Authority and its boundaries. They run all throughout this city, the central corridor, the north side of the city and the south side of the city. And we have very little coordinated approach to how we support and help grow, all of those industries that support our commerce and economic development. And so I would hope that, with the expansion of this, if it passes out from the full board, that the Port Authority would start looking at those, kind of reliances upon each other and interconnectivity and how we can partner and grow, our port, and so, as I mentioned, I support this because I do believe that it puts another tool in our toolbox from an economic development perspective. But I'm not without concern, that I share with, others of my colleagues. My concerns are different, from a different perspective, but, I would hope that, with this tool, you all utilize it in a way that creates growth and benefits all of the residents of the city. That concludes my comments, Madam Chairwoman.
All right, thank you.
I took it easy on
Just
Otis.
Everything Alderman from 25th said, just one more comment. So the board bill states by approval of the Board of Aldermen. So if the Port Authority wanted to go into Alderman Moore's ward, do a project that the alderman does not agree with, and I'm right next to Alderman Moore. Let's say the project is on the border of his ward and mine, and SLDC or the Port Authority comes to me, and I support it, but he doesn't. Most recently, noting what happened with the Paul McKee and NGA land transfer between the 3rd and the 5th ward. The SLDC went to the 3rd ward alderman who supported it, but did not go to the alderwoman who majority of the NGA ward is in. So how would that conflict be solved? To make sure that what happened with the NGA land transfer, this does not happen with future projects with the Port Authority, because again, it says approval of the Board of Aldermen. So I could say no to a project, Alderman Moore or Alderman Howard could say no to a project in their ward, but if the Board of Aldermen, 15 votes feel that it's a good thing, they would do it anyway. They can do it without that alderwoman. How is that going to be prevented?
I call it the legislative process. It's like making sausage, and so I just, what we do is we try and have conversations with at least I have, and every board bill that we have tried to push forward that originated within SLDC or any entity controlled by SLDC, we've always worked with all of the aldermen. I would tell you that we will do our damnedest to work with everyone. I'm not trying to say that in the example that you used, we had one alderman who was supportive and one alderman who was not. And so at that point, I think the legislative process was just, it was then put forward. I can't tell you that categorically here that there was one alderman that supported it and one that didn't, that we wouldn't do it. I can't tell you that.
So, and I think that creates a dilemma. To me, that's problematic. And
So no, I guess what I'm saying, we wouldn't do it. I couldn't tell you that we wouldn't, if one alderman was supportive of taking it to the body for you all to consider, it wouldn't be something that we would stand in the way of. Okay.
even if majority is in one ward and a supporting alderman.
Well, the example that you were saying, it's not that case. I mean, in fact, the NGA site itself actually goes right through the middle of
Killing
it.
in committee. That one was presented from the floor, and we didn't have an opportunity to discuss it. That was the case.
Why should I vote on something that's
Mhm.
marked?
Right.
They could both be against it, and I'm for it, so.
Mhm.
But anyway,
And that was unfortunate that it was handled that way. Did anybody else have any other comments?
I'd like to make a motion.
Hold on one second,
Okay.
okay?
That you ask for comments.
Yeah, I did ask for comments. That's not a comment.
Okay. Just saying.
Because I'm a little bit torn on whether I should say what is on my mind.
I've never known you not to.
And you're right. I know I took a lot of heat on this because people jump the gun on with their assumptions. And they also have a need to create unnecessary roadblocks for success for the city based on a number of different things. We are all complaining because we don't have enough to turn the city around when it comes to revenue. If we sit here and don't do the things that could generate some additional funds by expanding the boundaries which would allow us to use this tool to help the city, that would be criminal. We've talked about this at the Port Commission for I know 2.5 years at least.
Probably about 2 years.
2 years? Okay. Because I just know I've just been crazy because I know these tools are out there and we need to be, if the boundaries are not there and it's only the riverfront, if there was a project there that you wanted to get done, then we could look. If this is in place and it improves all the way around, then we can look at some other funds to bring to make a project move forward. That's all it is. That's all it is. There's nothing else to it. And because I don't know why they didn't extend these boundaries a long time ago, we've been sitting here only looking at the little riverfront and all this money from the Department of Interior and everywhere else. We could have been applying for grants and things. We could have done a whole lot of things better and different. But again, you've got to find more revenue for the city. People are not going to pay any more real estate taxes. They don't want to pay any more
Sales
property taxes, sales taxes, nothing. But if we don't generate revenue, get your feelings out of all of this. We've got to be responsible and generate revenue so that we can take care of this city's infrastructure as well as the residents who live here. That's what this is all about. Nothing else. Even in the original ordinance, it all said in the beginning, anything that it involves, any tax incentives had to come before the Board of Aldermen. And with our structure, it has to come through committee first, and that's where you can argue and tear it up and make sure you're pleased with it. And if you can't get there, then it goes nowhere. It doesn't go to the floor.
But doesn't, what Shane brought up earlier, they're able to do the 1% tax. Now, they're saying they're just gonna draw it around that. They're not restricted to drawing it around that, but they don't come back to us for that, right? So there's a tax increase that they don't come back to us. They're saying, well, we're gonna draw it like this. Nothing's stopping them from saying, well, to get the revenue we're looking for, we need to draw it a little bigger. I'm just
May I,
going
Madam
off of
Chair?
what Shane said.
I'm gonna allow, go ahead.
I think what you're saying is those people that are in the tax, just like a SID or any other taxing district,
All of
it
them come before us.
requires, it comes before us, but requires those people that are taxing
I
themselves
don't
to
know why we're
agree
trying to
to
make
it
this
to
something
begin with.
different.
No,
You
I
know,
don't know.
this is something that'll help us move the city forward. We need to get over ourselves. It's not about me, it's not about you, it's not about Madam Chair. It's about the city and having some tools that we can go out and generate and entice people to come in here and develop. I would love to have the problem of, maybe a development on Shane and Myers Ward, and maybe he's not agreeing with it. I'd have to take him out in the back alley. But, not like that.
Hopefully refuse picked up the trash back there
Not like
first.
that.
That's
You know,
not actually
all of
something-
those
But I
come
think we
before us.
need to look at the greater
Yeah, I don't
good,
think
not
that
just
answers
what
Yes,
is
it
in
does.
our little purview.
Yeah.
That said, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done too.
Yeah, so I shouldn't have started that because I do know that a lot of people have feelings. And the feelings are about, let's just don't do nothing. I'm afraid of everything, don't do nothing. Just let the city die. If anybody follows the economic reports about this city, everybody around us is at least 10 years ahead of us. Some people are 20 years ahead of us. And we've got all these resources that we could have been using. We have vacant land that we could have been encouraging development on. But all we do is sit here and fight an ordinance and say, don't do nothing. And I don't get it. I don't get it. Nashville has leaped so far ahead of us, it's just ridiculous. Even Springfield is ahead of us. Yeah, I just don't get it.
Springfield, Missouri.
Yeah, I don't get it. Do you not want this city to thrive? I don't get it. Okay? So I just had to say that because I know if I walked out of here today, it was still all bottled up in me, then I'll be sick this evening. So I just let it come on out. But we've got to just get more responsible. And there are going to be a whole lot of things that we have here and we haven't made available. And it is because we have not had a structured planning incentive department here in over 18 years. And that hurts a city. That really hurts a city. Because you don't get no help. There's no overall plan for the city. And that hurts. Whereas they have to wait till somebody feels sorry for us and or just simply want to invest here in the city to come forward with a development. Or else we don't get nothing. There's nobody out working towards that goal every day. We used to have that for the city. So we've got to get back to that prayerfully.
I thought that's what they did.
Accountability is what we don't have. Port Authority been going on from now. Otis don't have them, how much money we have, how much money it's gonna generate. In my ward, I'm frightened because I got the 1,700 vacant lots. And they could come in at any moment and do what they wanna do.
Nobody can do what they want to do in your ward.
It need to be held more accountable. We're gonna expand.
And if you expand the boundaries so that we can have access to additional funding that is out
They're
there.
gonna generate more money than we're already broke. We said we don't have any money in the kitty, so what is this gonna, how much more money is it gonna generate?
Alderman, you cannot sit here and forecast how much money, because we don't know what developments may come before us.
$100?
I wouldn't even try to do that. Because I don't know what might come to us. But I'm open and I want to have every tool available so that we can take advantage of it when it does come. And if we ever get a real planning process to help us get some things done, and if we get a true planning department where people out there working every day to bring us more projects to the city.
You say true, do we have a planning department?
No, sir, we haven't had one in 18 years.
What a shame.
I know, that's why we suffering.
So,
And people talk about Central Quarter, but the difference is that we spent money and developed a plan for our wards, and that came from the private sector. So it's just
The
different.
universities.
Right, it was different. If I hadn't had a plan in place to work from, nobody would have known what it was that we wanted for our
So
ward.
you saying that the Port Authority is inefficient right now?
Port Authority has nothing to do with that. I'm talking about a planning division. That has nothing to do with the Port Authority.
Who handles that?
No, nothing to do
Who
with the Port
handles the
Authority.
planning commission? Otis?
Well,
Darn.
no,
No.
no. But that was a choice that was made.
Madam,
Anybody else got another comment? Because I need to shut up. Okay.
if I had entertained an amendment that would basically say SLDC would not, it's the same language, but the resolution approving tax abatement or eminent domain, it would have to come from the alderman
That's
of
what it
the ward-
says, right
no,
here.
of the alderman of the ward in which, like the resolution have to be sponsored by the alderman in which the project is in.
I thought I saw that too. Hold
No,
on.
it just says by approval of the board of aldermen. Would you be against that, Mr. Director?
I think that the way it's written actually is such that we never introduce a bill that is not introduced by the alderman unless it is, say, the chair of a committee. But I'm at the,
Because it says here it has to come through committee first, and that's where you
Right.
kill it. If you say you don't want it, it's done.
Maybe we choose this committee chair possibly, but that could change. So,
Okay.
I'll leave it to you all to decide. I just think it's important for us, though, to expand the boundaries, and you all set the parameters. In practice, that's what we do anyway.
That's true. Yeah.
but
I've
if-
known many projects that went somewhere else because the alderperson said, I'm not interested, and nothing else was done. The people went on about their business and probably took it to Nashville or Kansas City.
That would be my amendment. If the committee the committee doesn't have any objections to it, I would introduce that amendment. Doesn't matter.
Well, we have to get the opinions of the rest of the committee members,
I agree.
okay? And we'll start with Alderman Moore.
Ready for the vote?
Are you interested in the amendment that the Alderman
Yes,
Muhammad just stated?
already got it written.
Lou is drafting it now.
Okay, and I think it should go right there where I just mentioned committee, and should say before committee, the representative of the designated board.
How can we vote on something that's not prepared
Oh,
yet?
no, we're not voting, I'm getting your opinion. If you-
Before I even introduce, I like
Right,
the committee
we
would.
just want to get an opinion.
Well, I was, yeah, you want me to round it up now? That's what I'm doing. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And
Okay,
so,
John, what are you amending?
So basically, right now, as the board bill is, the Port Authority will not proceed with any tax abatement or eminent domain without the approval of the Board of Aldermen. So any alderman could introduce their resolution and be approved.
You adding that too?
I'm adding it to where, in which the project is in, whatever ward it's in, the alderman of that ward will have to present the resolution. No other alderman will be allowed to.
I concur.
Thank you.
but that make you feel more comfortable?
A little bit.
Yeah, what it says is they can't do it in your ward without your, in other words, the alderman of the ward would have to be, not, in other words, I couldn't, without you sponsor something in your ward, I couldn't say, well, yeah, but I think it's better for the city, so I'm not gonna worry about what Sam says. In other words, if it's in your ward,
You always say that.
you would have to say. You would have to say. In other words, you would have to be the one to bring it forward.
Well, it's like I got over 100 churches in my ward, and the NGA placed a church in my ward on a site without my permission, without asking me anything, and just put the church there. I got enough. I'm a preacher myself, and I got enough preachers in my community. We're not saving anything but ourselves.
Yeah, Alderman, and you worked very hard with that pastor.
And Mr. Director, while we're waiting, if I can, Madam Chairwoman.
No, I'm just gonna move to the next person, I'm getting the opinion of the
Oh, yes,
committee,
ma'am.
okay?
That's my opinion. I concur.
That's his opinion, okay. And so Alderman Cone is not here, and so I'll move on to, I'm sorry, Vaccaro is before. Go ahead, sir.
But no, I'm with Alderman Muhammad there.
So you're
You
interested?
know, if the alderman, my whole thing has always been, why should I have say, And most of it, if you ask me, is gonna happen downtown. It's not gonna probably happen in John's Ward anyway. A lot of it's gonna be, you know, developing downtown, which I know that a lot of aldermen like, well,
But
we
you
do
never
things in
know.
that area. No, but, well, I can ask.
Yeah.
Notice you got any plans in Sam's Ward or John's Ward?
No,
But-
nobody's
but-
ready.
But I do have land, and
Yeah,
so,
you got land, you got a plan for the future.
Well, I know, but I would think more, it seems to me like most of the economic development that goes on happens downtown. And I hear it at most of the meetings where, you know, Alderman Moore says, you know, you're doing this, but this really isn't North St. Louis. It's kind of just an extension of
I-
downtown. I'm just saying, I'm not.
I know what Alderman Moore has articulated a number of times, but I can think about all of the things that are happening currently or about to happen along Evans and Martin Luther King, and what development is occurring. You know, I don't know how many residential units are actually going to be under construction in your ward.
About
So-
200.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that there is activity that is ongoing. It's not to the level that I'm sure he would prefer, but there is activity. And so we continue to work with folks who are dealing with other infrastructure issues and that kind of thing to try and make it such that people will.
I would support John's amendment that gives the aldermen in that ward say, you know, there's a little bit more accountability that way. I still, you know, anyway.
So I was just suggesting to the chair that we take a 5 or 10 minute recess while we was drafting the amendment and making
Yeah.
copies for.
So you're in support of it as well? Okay.
Well, at least it being heard and voted on, so
Okay.
Lou needs time to draft it.
Sure,
So
we're fine.
I don't know how many people.
So we all
It
break.
only requires about 6 words, and it needs to go
But it
here.
has to be inserted into
In,
at
in
least
line,
4 different
it goes
paragraphs.
here in line 14
I know,
on page
but it
3 or
goes
4.
in this section, and this section of the cooperation agreement
Okay,
as
so you-
well. So he has to amend the cooperation agreement
Okay,
that goes along
well,
with the
I'm-
board bill.
You could do that later. The board bill is what has to be done. Well,
Okay. I'll let
because
him
that gets attached to the board bill. So let's do that first. Alderwoman Middlebrook, your opinion?
I'm fine with what John wants to do, that's fine with
I
me.
am too. Okay.
I can
Yeah.
tell you right now, if you count the votes, if I'm assuming it would die if you took a vote. Not on that amendment, but on the whole thing. I kind of counted 3 to 3 right now.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, I'm just I don't know
Yeah.
how people are gonna vote, but I'm speculating.
Well, it is not anything that harms the bill. It gives the alderpersons a little bit more, hopefully, comfort. And the unfortunate part about it is, that the distrust level of operations is at its all-time high. And that hinders the city of St. Louis in a grave way. So
I'm just saying, I think with John's amendment.
this is helpful.
It's got a better chance of getting through, I'm just.
Yeah, this is helpful, so I'm glad that the alderman thought of it, and it should be ready in a very short period of time. So I think it's good.
I just say what I'm thinking.
Uh-huh.
I'm counting the votes without
Yeah.
Carol.
Go back and see.
So are we taking a break or?
It's being printed.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so as we took time to make sure that the amendments that were presented by Alderman Muhammad has been put before us, and what I'd like to do is accept a motion and I know that we do have the authority to vote for both of them at the same time. So I want to do, I'd like to accept a motion to approve amendment number 1 and 2 for Board Bill 104 Committee Substitute.
I'll make a
Chair.
motion I'll make that motion. It's your,
No, go ahead, I'll say.
okay, I'll make the motion that we
You
accept board
you got mine.
amendment.
It's nice too.
It's,
I make a motion that we
no, I suggest
accept the
that because, like,
amendment
it should
to
be
Board Bill
similar in
104
form.
Committee
Because if
Substitute
it's
Amendment
one
1 and
amendment
2.
or multiple amendments,
I second the motion.
involved in the project.
It's been moved and second to
I mean, it's
adopt
just, I don't-
amendments number 1 and 2 to Board Bill number 104, Committee Substitute. Will we have conversation on these amendments? Let's start with Alderman Moore,
No,
Alderman Cohen,
Nothing to.
I have no comment.
Alderwoman Howard. You already said none.
I had none, yeah.
You jumped in there, so I went right on. And then Alderman Muhammad,
No comments.
Alderwoman
Real
Middlebrook.
comments.
Okay, I have none.
I love Shane. That's why you go ahead if you like him better than me. He's gonna hope to draw a better card
Don't
next
take it
time.
personal.
He's gonna try and draw out.
Okay, so, we have no further discussion on these two amendments. Could we please, take a vote?
Alderman Moore,
aye.
Alderman Vaccaro,
Aye.
Alderman Cone,
Pass.
Alderwoman Howard. Alderman Muhammad,
Aye.
Alderwoman Middlebrook. Aye. Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
7 aye votes.
Thank you. We now have Board Bill 104 Committee Substitute as amended.
I make a motion that we pass out Board Bill number 104, Committee Substitute as amended.
I second that motion.
Moved in second. Please call the roll.
Previous roll.
Objection.
Objection.
Oh, okay.
Shane would
Okay.
So we have an objection to previous roll.
Okay.
Call the roll.
Alderman Moore,
President, pass.
Alderman Vaccaro,
pass.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard. Aye. Alderman Muhammad,
No.
Alderwoman Middlebrook. Aye. Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderman Moore,
President,
Alderman Vaccaro,
I'm gonna vote aye since we put the amendment in.
that's 5 aye votes, 1 no, and 1 pass.
So what's the
Oh,
outcome?
well, present, I'm sorry, one
Present,
present.
present, yeah.
5 aye votes, 1 no vote, and 1 present.
All right,
Madam Chairman, put mine to aye.
I'm gonna change your vote to an aye.
For Otis.
Thank you.
Okay, so,
Quick enough for me.
Board Bill 104 Committee Substitute as amended has passed this committee, and I thank you all for your attendance. We have no more business today. I will give you a brief update on the communication process for the airport procedures. And so we're going into a 6-week community engagement with meetings all over the region. Right now, we're trying to get dates for 70 meetings at this moment.
How
The
many,
70, all over the region.
are we required to be there?
No, sir, you come anytime you want to, but you're not required. The first one is this Sunday at Harris Stowe, 2 p.m., from 2 to 4 p.m. at the William Clay Childhood Center. And that one was geared towards all of the Urban League employees, all the auxiliaries, Harris Stowe, students, faculty, and we also added St. Louis University, student and faculties too, so it should be a huge turnout.
Would that be a list sent out to us or schedules of all?
Absolutely. It's currently online, but what I just asked them to do at my working group meeting was to add some more ways for everybody to know when these meetings are taking place. And so it'll be coming out to all the aldermen with the schedule, and as we get appointments set, we'll update it.
So
Okay?
the meetings are, the communication is focused towards a certain, but anybody's welcome.
Anybody's, it says open
Okay.
to the public,
Okay.
yeah.
So in other words, that
Yeah.
particular one's focused towards.
Focused on a
around
certain
that
group of
area.
people,
And-
Yeah, yeah.
But if I wanted to go, I could.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's good to know.
There will be no excuse. Anybody should be able to attend one at some
One
point.
somewhere, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
All
thank you.
right, thank you, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.